Russell, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was, speaking already in a couple of seconds there. But yeah, thanks for noting that. I usually forget that. But yeah, I just want to say again, welcome to this session for Southern California UiPath Community Chapter. And today, we're going to cover a very exciting topic, which I'm sure has been covered as well and resonates to the attendees right now that is in the tech space and even in the other industries or verticals. So we're covering today one of the most exciting integrations that UiPath has released recently, which is OpenAI or the large language models that's been released by OpenAI called GPT. So that's our topic for today, and by the end, we'll be walking you through a quick demo um, of I'll be going through a sneak peek, but before that sneak peek of that demo, we will let me introduce first our speaker here, our guest speaker here, coming from one of the uh, most active chapter, one of the most active chapter in the Americas region. We have here Sharon, which is also one of our UiPath ambassador in this region, right? And of course, our MVP list in the 2023 hailed as and leading the Denver chapter as well. So why don't you do a quick introduction, Sharon?
Absolutely. Thank you for the introduction yourself, Russell. I think you said most of the stuff about me, and I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our session today to learn on, OpenAI and its capabilities in UiPath. I'm Sharon Palawandram. I'm based off of Denver, Colorado. I'm working as a machine learning consultant at Ashling Partners. I work on a day to day basis on developing document understanding centric models on UiPath specific alone. So I'm very excited to talk about OpenAI. I know everyone is excited to know how it's getting implemented and the use cases for it. So excited to be here, and thank you for having me, Russell and Pradeep, and the Southern California chapter.
Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging our invitation, Sharon. So your presence is very, very important here. So I'd like to introduce myself as well. I'm Russell Alfeche. I'm also one of the UiPath MVP for UiPath community. Previously, I'm working for UiPath. Interestingly, in their sales engineering organization in um, Asia Pacific, and then I moved here to the US to lead the technical capability for RPA for one of their top partners in the intelligent automation services industry. So that's me, and also I think although she's not here, so Diana Gray is leading the community for this region for Americas in at UiPath. So without further ado, maybe let's take us. Let me as I promised, let me give you a sneak peek of what we will be showing as part of the walkthrough later after the this is our agenda that we'll be covering through slides that Sharon has prepared. But let me take a quick sneak peek of what's to come. How do I share screen? Yes, I can share screen. Uh, Entire screen. Yep. I hope you can see my screen now. So what if I told you that this right here is an exact chat GPT clone that you can do in 5 to 10 minutes yourself using just UiPath and its native integrations. I say exact ChatGPT clone because it's the exact model that's being used by the ChatGPT, although the interface is different. I'll walk you through how you can build this interface within UiPath Studio and be able to natively integrate with just a few activities with UiPath. So let me provide a sample prompt here. Yes, I have a demo in UiPath plus plus GPT. Can you give me a boost of encouragement? So all of this is happening. So if you can see, it's within Studio. So I launched, and then this is the exact capability of GPT 3.5, which um, Sharm will be covering. And of course, given that you can do this very simply within UiPath, I'll walk you through how later how you can do even more since you have access to this within all within Studio and trigger the new trigger automation. So that's just a quick sneak peek, and then I'll hand over to Sharon for to give you a quick to set the stage for the demo later.
Thanks, Russell. After seeing your sneak peek, I'm actually excited to see the demo and how it's worked. But before that, you might have questions on, how OpenAI and GPT models in its core concept, how they work. So let's talk a little bit about that. Awesome. I'm sharing my screen. Russell, can you see my screen? You can,
Yes,
right?
I can see
Okay,
that.
cool. So let's talk about ChatGPT. Now, probably I'm assuming that all of you in this call have used ChatGPT at some point. ChatGPT is a human like conversational interface that we use day to day to interact and get answers, right? But to talk about the core concept of it, ChatGPT is actually a human like response integration model that was built on an open AI solution and architecture called the GPT architecture. So, GPT architecture, there's a difference between the GPT and the Chat GPT architecture. Just to know that Chat GPT is actually a solution, but GPT is the architecture of it. So, if you see both of them side by side, you'd see that GPT is actually trained using millions of data points using generative AI, or we could call it large language models that train using deep learning algorithms to give us the algorithm that provides solutions like ChatGPT. A little bit of history on how ChatGPT came up was it's a sister product of InstructGPT that was also a OpenAI solution. So just like Russell said, ChatGPT is based on the 3.5 architecture. We'll talk a little bit about that in our next slides as well. But that's the core fundamentals of how ChatGPT has been built. So this was taken by in the OpenAI website, and this gives you in a nutshell how and any solution of OpenAI works. So what you have is you have a train set. You train it using deep learning, and there's a continuous fine tuning reinforcement loop that goes on to train the model as they go. Also, I just want to let you know that if you have any questions while we are demonstrating, do add them in the chat. So once I've given my presentation, I will be able to answer all your questions that you might have. So just a highlight of what products that OpenAI offers right now. We have the GPT models. GPT 3.5, GPT-4. You must have heard there's something called the GPT-3 models as well. Last year, before the whole chat GPT fandom came on, GPT-3 architecture was very famous. But now we have GPT 3.5 and GPT-4. There is DALL-E, a model that can, edit images, generate images. You've got Whisper, you've got embeddings, something that I really like because embeddings offers the capability of fine-tuning models. Say you want to implement this for a production use case in your environment. You can fine tune any of the open AI models that offer using embeddings, where you can use your own data set, create vector data sets, and use them to fine tune your either chat GPT or your GPT model. There is other GPT-3, which I just spoke about, and the codex that can generate code, create unit tests. Uh, and these are the solutions that OpenAI currently offers. Awesome. So, what are the differences between the GPT models? We spoke about 3.5, 3, 4. So, it basically surrounds around the capability, the speed, the performance, the number of tokens that they offer. Again, we'll talk about the tokens in a little bit. So here's another concisement that I got from OpenAI that summarizes the capabilities and the differences between these models. So, say if you want to use GPT 3.5 and you will see you want to use GPT 4, which is still in like private preview but should be available soon, you can find the differences that more suits your automation needs and your capabilities. Awesome. So if you see the GPT-3, GPT 3.5, you'd see the difference is one of the differences the training data on how a model has been trained. You can see right off the bat here, GPT-3 has been trained with data taken from 2019, only up to 2019, GPT 3.5 up to 2021 September. So this would reflect if you have a, say, virtual assistant, or if you're having a chatbot that you're developing for a company, these reflect on the training sets that are available during this timeline. Also, you can see there's a difference in tokenization. There's a token limit which you can use in your models. And when you use the language models like 3.5 Turbo, DaVinci, they have different performance outputs. So some of the things that if you are custom making this, and I think Russell will be explaining the parameters of how you can adapt your GPT model. So that there you'll know how more you can implement which model goes where. Okay, awesome. So this is the latest GPT-4 model that's in beta private preview right now. A nice thing on the GPT-4 solution is that they offer not only text inputs, but they train with images as well. So the image capability also comes as a GPT-4 offering. And you can see here, they have increased their token limits. So if you have a question that you want to answer for, say, for example, you need to generate documentation, you need to generate content, that reflects on a larger number of tokens. So GPT 3.5, GPT 4, they have been developed and scaled to deliver that kind of offering. Okay, so now I spoke about the GPT models and what their capabilities are. Let's divert back to ChatGPT because ChatGPT is something that's very inclusive, very in demand, and that can be used to monetize in a company and use for an RPA solution as well. So some of the ChatGPT solutions that we can use is for customer service, personalized recommendations, content, sales support, language translation. So if you think about some services that you can provide for a client, you can use ChatGPT that can assist in all of these product offerings. Okay, awesome. So let's see the difference of GPT versus ChatGPT in production and how we can use them in different scenarios. So I know we spoke about this previously as well, but let me just give you a highlight on how we can use ChatGPT and GPT. So when you think about GPT, and if you're thinking about implementing GPT in UiPath solutions, you can use GPT models to generate code, translate natural languages, generate queries, or if you have unit testing, you can generate unit testing. You can translate coding technologies. For example, you can convert from Python to C++ using the DPT architecture. And if you go into ChatGPT, it's more of a question output scenario. So you can have a human like conversation, and you can have it as a virtual assistant or a help support desk or a literally a chatbot that will help you, answer your questions, and maybe you can dive into your database using the chat gpt function. Awesome. So no technology comes as magic. As a developer, if you're working in a development environment, it's kind of important to learn the limitations, because sometimes whenever someone comes and asks me, is ChatGPT a good solution to implement for a client? What are the limitations of it? Are there governance regulations? It's important to understand the limitations of any technology, because any technology is not magic. There are always limitations. So whenever you're developing from a development perspective, it's important to understand that whatever happens, there could always be a bias. Even if you are using ChatGPT, you probably could have encountered, if you ask a question, you might not get the precise answer that you want. And there could be some bias, some contextual misunderstandings. And ChatGPT could have the lack of emotion, the lack of sentimental analysis. And using ChatGPT without fine tuning could give it inability to learn as well. And it could have limited domain knowledge. Previously, you saw the GPT 3.5, even GPT 4, they're still only developed under data collected from 2021. So if you ask a question that happened in 2023, it's probably not going to know. So that kind of limitations should be made aware if you're developing a solution. So, what are the advantages of using ChatGPT over other models? Something that I like, that's a really good advantage of ChatGPT, is fine tuning. The ability to train with your own data, to fine tune, to train over time, gives that model a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of customization. So that characteristic champions over other chatbots that's available in the industry. So one of the key considerations is how flexible ChatGPT could be for our customized automation solutions. Um, And this, obviously, what I said before, the customization could drive business value because it's a very easy to implement solution, right? There are so many methods, even at UiPath, where we can implement using APIs or using our integration services. So this kind of feasibility and ease of access gives a higher potential to design, develop, and move into production a solution which drives higher business value. And if you're from a business side of operations, it could reduce cost because OpenAI offers competitive costs in APIs. So technology business wise, it could be a valuable ROI driven automation if you think about it. So, some of the considerations that you should check is that ChatGPT offers as well is the data privacy. These are some of the questions that have been asked in ChatGPT. Like if some client wants to implement their solution, they might ask, "What are the ethics of it? Are government and security measures? Is ChatGPT regulated? Is there any human oversight of it?" So it's good to be mindful of these considerations as well when you are developing, so you can have answers from a development or a business perspective. You might have seen on the news how OpenAI recently came with governance. They have data privacy. You can have privacy for your data, for the questions asked. So all of those regulations are also a uh, good practice for you to know and for you to keep in mind as well. Awesome. Cool. So this is more of a standardized structure on the considerations that you need to make. And this is from a developer perspective, right? So this could scale into GPT, and this could actually go into any automation that you do. So one of the things that if you are developing a customized model using GPT, Chat GPT, one of the things that we need to consider is data, right? So if you are working with document understanding in UiPath, I think that's very formal notion that you need to have a diverse and representative data set where you need to have the data set as much as diverse as possible and not the same thing to overcome biases and overfitting or underfitting. So even in GPT model implementation, if you're going to go into embeddings, it's good to have a representative data set in your development. And then, like we talked about before, it's important for you to find out what GPT model is going to best suit your needs and capabilities. And once you have trained your GPT model, you need to fine tune it for your specific needs. You can see, what fields are not properly extracted, what need more training, fine tuning capabilities, and deployment. How you're going to deploy it, what infrastructures offer the deployments. And next is user experience. I think this goes hand in hand with what Russell is going to demonstrate next as well. The user experience on how the end user is going to use the product. You can develop a fantastic solution, but if the business user finds it hard to use, it defeats the purpose of the automation. So you have to identify what solutions you can use in attended, unattended automations, and you need to define that and find how that can be amalgamated into your process automation. The next is scalability. So, scalability is something important to note because most of the time we develop automations with our current business requirements, but it wouldn't accommodate the scalability factor of a solution, right? So, for example, whenever we develop document understanding process, it's always important to think about how we are going to scale. Can we go from 30 fields to 50 fields? Can we set our document structures for 50 types of documents to 100 types of documents? So you need to always think about the scalability factor as well when you are developing an automation. And finally, the ethics and privacy of it all. To be aware of your data, the storage, and proper carrying of data when you're training, fine tuning, and all of these regulatory purposes are also needed for your train pipeline and your cycle. So I hope this gives if you're a developer, just an understanding on the considerations that you need to make in your development loop, not just for GPT, but for any solution. Awesome. So let's go into UiPath with ChatGPT. So this goes beyond ChatGPT, by the way. You can use these for integrating OpenAI, other solutions like GPT-3, 3.5 models. So there is Web API activities. You can use Web API to call your GPT model or your ChatGPT model. We have OpenAI connectors in integration services. You can use OpenAI services. You can use Azure OpenAI services to collaborate with UiPath. And lastly, something in preview is Ask GPT. So you can ask GPT as well. It's a marketplace component where you can use it to call your GPT model. Cool. Russell, will you be doing this request body? Are you going through that, or do you want me to do it?
Actually, I'm going to be using the OpenAI connector
Okay.
for the native integration one. But yeah, if you wanna cover the raw, if they want to do a raw API call, then this is what they need.
Cool. Awesome. I'll give a quick intro on what the parameters are, and that will give an idea on how we can fine tune a model, how we can like make changes to the model. So just to give you a quick highlight, this is a request body that we use to call if we are using API, right? So if you see on the right side, you see a curl command which has prompt, max tokens, and temperatures. So if you see the prompt is obviously the question you're going to ask, just like Russell previously asked, the question. And the max token is the max number of the model's content length. So for example, if you're going to ask, what's the temperature in Denver today? ChatGPT could say the temperature in Denver is so and so, which would define, say, maybe 10 to 20 tokens. But if you want it to be, say, 5 tokens and just shorten it up, so you can define that token length as well. And it's important to know the temperature. I think it's the most important one. The temperature can go between 0 to 2, I believe. So this would keep your model the same throughout the course. Say you ask a question, we don't want the model to give different answers every single time. We would want the model to be controlled and to give one answer each time. In that case, we'll be setting the temperature to 0 to be controlled and to have less variance. But if you want to have a more variable, more dynamic situation, we can switch the temperature to 2. And you can see in the request body, you can use, there are GPT models below called Text DaVinci, DaVinci 003. You can change those models for your capability as well, so that you can use the GPT-3, 3.5. And if you want to change that, this is how you do it, by changing the model parameters. Okay, awesome. Thank you, everyone, for hearing about the OpenAI and how it's implemented in UiPath. Russell, it's over to you for the demo.
Sure. Thanks, Sharon, for that awesome overview and setting the stage. Very, very, very insightful. Lots of useful content, especially as we go through this demo that I'm going to show you. You have one great point that you pointed out during the demo is regarding the challenges, right? So I'm gonna piggyback on those challenge, and hope you can see my screen right now. So I'm gonna piggyback on those challenge. And how UiPath or automation as a whole can help address those challenges, right? Because as it is, GPT, OpenAI, or the models that was trained is built to be general purpose, right? Um, it can answer generic questions that has been pre-trained with, although there are some plugins or extensions that will be available in the future, like browsing plugins in Bing, the ability to go to browser. But let's say if you ask like specific biography of a person, it will provide an answer, but it will make stuff up, right? You're not sure how accurate it is. And another sample would be asking it arithmetic questions, which is one of the things that it can't have because it's a language model, right? It's it tries to predict the next sequence of words based on how it's trained. So that's why it's important having a tool, automation tool like UiPath, to be able to consolidate like a specific knowledge base information, and as Sharon has alluded to earlier, building an embeddings or vector database that you can have this information readily available and inject this context into the prompt so that it can provide accurate response. So, case in point, I think you're aware of Microsoft Pilot as well. So that's the term grounding, priming the prompt. So those are things that makes the output of GPT much more reliable. And I'll show you how that possibility can also be available if with the UiPath integration that we have right now, by building and walking through the very simple scenario, or very simple demo of how you can create a Chat GPT clone just from UiPath Studio. So enough said, and I'll just go ahead and start a project, right? Let me call this demo SoCal. Okay. So we're gonna leverage the new attended triggers automation to build the forms and to build the to easily orchestrate the triggers within that particular form. So let me add the forms activities. So there are two main packages that we need here, right? One is the form activity, and then OpenAI. Just quickly install. And then after this, the next step would be to build the front end, right? And what better way to build the front end of your like chat application, but to use or leverage the power of GPT model, right? So, but first, I'd like to show you a sample structure of the prompt to give you the best result in the response from the GPT model, because um, your output from the model is limited to how you prime the prompt, or how you build your prompt, right? And one of the effective uh, structure of creating the prompt, right, is by following this role, task, and format structure, right? In this case, I want the GPT model to create me a front end of a chat application, a fully functional one. So I'll have this a prompt like act as a front end expert front end developer, create me a functional chatbot application and show us a HTML with JavaScript, something like that. This might sound silly, but um, given the way that the GPT model is trained with, as I said, general purpose, giving this context or sort of instructions or role limits the scope of like the how it can generate the responses for you. So that to some extent it helped, but um, so that's what I'm gonna do now. Let's see, and hold on. Let's see. Have build a fully functional chatbot application uh, and show us HTML with JavaScript functions. So, um, and one more thing. So the reason why I have it create an HTML because now, if you have the latest version of Studio, right, and the form activities, now the Studio supports HTML, not only the the UI form that legacy one that we're using. That's very limited. So now you're flexible to create your own HTML with JavaScript functions, and that's what we'll be doing right now. So hold on, let me just close this. So it generated a functional chatbot for us. So I'll just copy this, right? Um, and so since the GPT model is some ML model, right? This is probabilistic, not deterministic. So if you ask this again, they create a new chat, it will create another one. So I'll copy the first one that I have that it has provided me previously. So and copy it directly in Studio. So I'll create a folder here for a folder for my forms, and then I'll add the file chat.html, and then it's fine. And then I'll open this via VS Code. Let me just so I've copied the chatbot application created by uh, the chat GPT. My laptop is really slow right now. So I'll just quickly open this via VS Code so I can paste in the the one that we've copied from. So this is our project, the UiPath project, and then I'll just paste in the chatbot application, right? So let me just paste this in. Okay. So this is the one, the original one that I mentioned that is also came from ChatGPT. So it has all the fully functional working chatbot. So just to show you how I can instantiate it in here. So there should be an activity. So these are the new form activity. So you don't have the create form anymore, but uh, uh, you can show form if you have your HTML, right? So that's what we're doing right now. It automatically detects the HTML file, the UI form file, if you have the native form that UiPath supports. And let's just see what it looks like. This HTML that ChatGPT generated for us. It's rendering. Let me just open it here. Hold on, let me check the HTML. Let's just stop this in a bit and let's make sure that uh, there's no errors there. So I just copied pasted this coming directly from ChatGPT. Oh, I didn't save it. Sorry, it's not saved. Uh, right. Let me just quickly open that again. Yes, so it's here. So this is what the ChatGPT created for us, and that's what we'll be working on with the how we will use UiPath to do these integrations with the GPT model now, right? So now you can show the form. The other part of this is creating and orchestrating this together through what we call triggers, right? Now you have your application, like your like chatbot application. You want to uh, type in a message and click send, right? So once you send the button, so that's your trigger. So in this case, I will create a trigger here, and creating a trigger is just by simply creating a sequence, a simple sequence, right? And then you can name it anything. I can name this like on send, right? And how a sequence can be determined as a trigger is by adding an activity called form event trigger, right? Form event trigger, you attach it to a form that you have, which is your chat.html, which is pre-generated by ChatGPT. And then event can be close to form, lost focus gain, or in this case, in order for us to implement a custom um, um, like trigger and process it within the HTML, we will use form message. Right? If we're using a native UI coming directly from the traditional create form task, so you can create the trigger from those as well. And if you select that UI form from here, it will add those triggers as a drop down here. But in our case, we're using a custom HTML, and the trigger will come as a message, right? And then we'll say, once the button is clicked, right, the button will send a message saying send button clicked, right? So I'll mention later how this is being used, right? But essentially, let's work on the UiPath piece for now that you have here, and I'll cover the HTML piece, what you need to add in a bit, right? So after adding the trigger, so once the button is clicked, this will initiate, and then you need to get form values, right? After getting form values, you need, meaning the chat input. This is the chat input. After getting the chat input, now you can get all the integrations that you need. In this case, I'm using OpenAI, chat completion, right? Sharon has mentioned about the parameters that you need, that you can set here, right? The temperature and all that, um, the max tokens, right? And then, of course, you should create your OpenAI connection in integration service. So this is set in integration service. If you do a manage a connection here, so you have, you can see your connection here. So you have the OpenAI in shared folder. You can add connection, OpenAI, and add your token um, in here, right? So you can get your token from platform.openai.com, and then you can get your API key uh, from your dashboard. So these are just a step to create your connections using integration service and make this activity work, right? So after you have created your connection, right? The next activity, so just putting all this in, is set form related to form values, right? And that's it, right? So on the UiPath piece, this is how you um, monitor the trigger, get the input message from the form, right? And you have to tie it to the um, element ID where the message should be input. So I'll show that in the XML. So my element ID is chat messages, and then I'll put it in a variable called chat message. So once I have the chat message, right, um, I can then go to here and then provide it as my prompt. Chat message, and then I can get the output from the chat completion, top generated text, okay, top one result, and then set form value, same form, and then same element ID in your HTML, depending on how ChatGPT generated your HTML, and then show it there. So essentially, you're done with the UiPath piece, and you already have um, UiPath uh, create that HTML chat for you, and then you can just enable this, so it will just keep open as long as you're working with it. And then another last piece here would be run local triggers, so it will enable any trigger that you have. Let's say you have on send, on click, on close. So you can create as much figure as you want here. So this is the UiPath piece. Okay. Now, when you go back to the HTML, there are just a couple of things that you need to like update um, on this HTML that was generated, right? So it already generated the the design for you, right? As well as the styles. What you just need to focus on is the script, right? So this is the script that ChatGPT generated for me to handle the response, right? It listens for my click, so it will like append or write what I have mentioned on the chat, and then provide a response. So this is the most basic example. Um, so if you want to um, like trigger UiPath from this, right? The UiPath Studio triggers. So there's you should create a variable named UiPath API, right? So adding to this, I just need to create var UiPath API, and this is case sensitive, right? Um, so it should be exactly uh, as it is, right? As you can see here, right? Um, and it supports three functions, right? One is get value, another is set value, and the last one is send message. What are these functions, right? Um, these functions, if you remember in the UiPath workflow, get value. So this is for the get form values, right? Set value is for the set form value that you can update based on your how you wanna um, set the value, right, for the HTML. And send message. So this is you can just leave it blank. But this one you can implement on your own, right? So how does this work? So once the send button is clicked, so this is what ChatGPT has sent or has created for me. Once this is clicked, it will create another div with my message, right? And then the chatbot's message will be using the handle server response. So in this case, I will comment this out so that instead of this just dummy handle server's response, which says your message is whatever your message is, I will call the UiPath API dot send message, and then what my trigger is send button click. So what this does is once I click the send button, it will uh, send a message to iPad with this message, and it will trigger this workflow, right? So from this workflow is triggered. This will get form value, and how that this will get form value is through here, right? Um, so I have pre-created function for this get a form value. So this is so I also asked this from ChatGPT how to get the value of a specific div or element given the element ID. How can I get the content of the message basically that was given to the chatbot? So and then this is joined all the messages historical because so that the chatbot, even if you chat a new chat, the next the subsequent chat, it has context of all the previous messages or exchange that you have. So this is the piece of code, my get value, and then after get value, um, it will then feed the messages, the historical messages that you have, into the generate chat completion. So that's why chat message here. And then set form value will then set to the chatbot by HTML. And that's where we will call this handle server response. In this case, it will send the output from GPT. So I'll just, yep. So that's it. I think, yeah. So that's basically the what you need to add, or I mean, you can customize as you based on your requirement. So this is how you set form value, and this is how you get form value, right, from your HTML. It doesn't have to be a chatbot; it can be any type of front end. So this you can customize how you can get or set form value, and then depending on the events, this is how you call a specific event in UiPath, and basically do its job, whatever you have integrated here, right? So now, given this, the possibilities will be endless, right? The ability for UiPath to be able to consolidate information, to integrate with other applications, whether it's OpenAI or other large language model framework. So this is the capability of this that this integration provides, right? Um, what we have in ChatGPT in the next releases will be plugins, which is not available in public right now, but in the future, right? They really want to address these challenges like the arithmetic capability to properly solve math problems, the ability to make the responses more reliable, and how they do that in the future is through plugins, right? But right now, even right now in UiPath, even without the plugins, given the ability of UiPath to integrate with this custom integrations, right? LangChain, Salesforce, Stable Diffusion. So you can even create more than a chat GPT clone, but providing more capabilities to that chat GPT model, right? Being able, let's say, the ability to generate images by integrating with a Stable Diffusion, uh, um, GPT 3.5 helping you to provide a prompt to the Stable Diffusion model to create you a very, very nice image. Integration with LangChain for the other large language models, maybe Salesforce and all that. So this is essentially the other types of use cases and capabilities given this ability, native capability to call the OpenAI GPT model, right? Maybe you can even add some action center integration, service desk automation, or contact center. As you can see, we just built a chatbot right now, and other native service integration service integration, right? So this demo flow that I'm showing right here is a summary of what I've shown you, right? So you show the form, you render form based on your HTML or the UI form that UiPath you can create in UiPath. Initialize the triggers, set up the triggers via sequence or SAML. You can process the trigger either through UiPath UI form or HTML5 with JavaScript, and then you can send output back to Studio. and then this is the power that it provides, being able to call different types of integrations like OpenAI, and then combine this with other um, types of integration that can help um, make your context more reliable or prompt, so you can generate more reliable output. Let me just quickly run this. I know we've run out of time, and thanks for those who are there still people on the call, or I'm just talking to myself. I hope there's still people on the call. Yeah, so this is what you build, right? Um, so this is the chatbot that ChatGPT has created for us, and then integrating with uh, ChatGPT. So I think there's some issues with the set form values, but if we so this is another one that I'm building. Same thing that I walked you through. Um, let's run this one. I'm planning to integrate some more capabilities so that it will be not just a chat GPT clone, but more advanced integrations that's not available in the chat GPT, maybe in the chat GPT 4. Uh, so let's test his memory. Let's test your memory. So yeah, so it's the exact chat GPT clone. So it has the context of all the messages that you have. So great. Yeah, I think that ends our session for today. Um, Sharon, you still there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. Great presentation, Russell. I really learned how to use integration services to get ChatGPT in a different perspective. So, great insight. Thank you for sharing.
Uh,
Awesome. To our audience, do you guys have any questions? You can probably unmute yourself or you can add it in the chat for any questions, comments that you might have.
I think
We have a very quiet audience today, don't we, Russell?
right, right. So I'm not sure if that's positive or negative, but I'm leaning more towards a positive one. So it's yeah. Probably we can share the recording. Um, yes, of course we can also share the sample project that we have. And again, this is just a pretty simple demo. And I think from here, hopefully this will spark like ideas from you, what more integrations that you can build with this capability, and being able to address, of course, the challenges that the original or the primary model for GPT, how we can address those by leveraging automation in UiPath. So I think chat. So there's a question around the Chat GPT Plus to change max tokens. I suppose you're asking um, on the Chat GPT website or on UiPath, because in UiPath it doesn't have integrations with GPT-4 yet, since its API is not yet available, it's still for waitlist. Um, but so I suppose you're asking in the perspective on the Chat GPT
Yeah, I
uh,
think it's
website.
the Chat GPT, Russell.
That's,
Yeah. And can I take this question?
yeah, sure, sure, sure.
Yeah, I think so. The tokens actually sorry, the tokens actually depend on the cost. So sometimes it's recommended to keep like a mid-level token parameter. Again, it depends on your business use case, right? So say you're working with content generation, say for documentation, then you can think about token parameters to be on a high end. But say you're using a chatbot or a virtual assistant, at that point, we could think about just giving straightforward answers to the point. At that point of time, we can limit token parameters. So it totally depends on the cost end of the day associated with the tokens, because ChatGPT and OpenAI, they calculate with the tokenization and the purpose of the automation. So I think that's how you need to think about if you are going to fine tune your token parameters.
Absolutely. And I can answer Ludovic's question. So what is added value of using ChatGPT with UiPath? So that's a very good question. I think we may have covered that during the presentation, right? As mentioned, ChatGPT is built to be very general purpose, right? You don't want to use it at an enterprise level type of implementation unless you will be able to create your own knowledge base or technical knowledge base using embeddings so that it would be able to answer appropriately or reliably. um, Otherwise, if you just use chat gpt, then you ask it with something that's very pointed question, and it will confidently answer 100% confident but 100% inaccurate. So you don't know what what is accurate or not unless you do context injection using embeddings or other means. And that's where also plugins come in, right? Plugins is not available for ChatGPT public users yet. Maybe it's mostly for developers. So the reason why plugins are there, because ChatGPT by itself cannot really answer any question, right? It can answer, as I said, confidently any question, but maybe 70% of the time it's correct, but 30%, which is big, it won't provide you a really reliable answer. That's why plugins are there, right? Plugin for like Wolfram to answer math questions and all other things, browsing plugins to help for ChatGPT to browse plugins. So plugins is an integration with other technologies, not only GPT, and that's where UiPath really the strength of UiPath is, right? Being able to um, use UiPath to, let's say, scrape websites or consolidate knowledge base, and then use chat GPT or use GPT model to answer questions based on the knowledge base. So that's one really useful integration, UiPath with GPT, to help you get more reliable response. So that's only one type of use case. But again, GPT alone by itself will not work at an enterprise level use cases. So that's why you really need to have this other integrations. And how you can do this is one way is through automating using UiPath and having the capability to build um, from as simple as workflow as this to a more complex workflow before even calling in GPT model through UiPath. So that's my long-winded answer. Hope that answers your question, Ludovic.
Russell, is there a repository to access your project? I think Rick asked me. I think he has asked me on DM, not the general one.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I will upload this. I have a GitHub repository. I can share the link after this call, and of course the video recording. We'll share that.
Any other questions? Going once, going twice.
Great, great questions.
Yeah. Awesome, Russell. Thank you once again for having me here. I think we had a great session, had a great conversation with you and the audience at the SoCal chapter. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time and having me here.
Absolutely, and likewise, Sharon. I really appreciate you being here and yeah, sharing your knowledge in the UiPath community. This is really important for us. Um, we being able to share and teach is the really the best way to learn for every of us as well. So, thank you for
Absolutely.
doing.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Then have a good rest of your day and take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.